Okay, moving on to the final segment of today's show. I wanted to talk a little bit about the Sunday night football game here in week 14 as the Buffalo Bills ended up defeating the Pittsburgh Steelers by a final score of 26-15. And I have so many different takeaways from this game in regards to both teams, but I just wanted to start off by saying this. I think that top to bottom, in terms of head coach, offensive coordinator, defensive coordinator, quarterback coach, all the way down, the Buffalo Bills have an argument to be the most well-coached team in the National Football League. And if you've listened to this show for long enough, you will know I have not always been a huge fan of Josh Allen. I've always been a huge Sean McDermott guy, and I totally understand, even as a Jet fan, that over the last couple of years, the way the Buffalo Bills have really been able to build this roster, they've been doing it the right way. They're showing you that a team like Buffalo, who, let's face facts, isn't really out here signing all of the marquee great free agents in the NFL, and the Bills haven't been good in a really long time. We all understand that Buffalo isn't the most ideal place to play when you get drafted into the NFL, but at the same time, I love what Sean McDermott, the head coach, and Brandon Beane, the GM, I love what those guys have been able to do in a 3 or 4 year stretch to immediately change the culture and really just have this Buffalo Bills team each and every year in contention. And I think this year is the peak. It could be the peak. And the future is just super, super bright because I'll admit, 18 months ago, when Josh Allen was a youngster and he first was starting off playing for the Buffalo Bills, I'll admit, if I was his head coach, I would be afraid to let him throw the ball. We all know that coming out of Wyoming, this is a guy that was super athletic, had a huge, huge arm, but there were a lot of concerns, including accuracy. And that was one thing with Josh Allen that I remember during that 2018 draft, I was a little concerned about. I wanted the Jets, I'll admit, to take a Sam Darnold or a Baker Mayfield or even a Josh Rosen over a Josh Allen type, just because I always thought that accuracy is one of those qualities in the NFL that you can't teach. It's you have it or you don't. And I remember watching Josh Allen coming out of the University of Wyoming. I was not interested in him as a big-time franchise quarterback just because of those arm problems and the accuracy. But at the same time, this is where Sean McDermott, Brandon Beane, and also the Bills' offensive coordinator, Brian Daboll, deserve so much credit because now Josh Allen looks like one of the 5 best quarterbacks in the league. And it was clear on Sunday Night Football that he was the best quarterback on that field in Buffalo, and it's crazy because he was playing against a Hall of Famer that a lot of people like to really compare Josh Allen to, a young Ben Roethlisberger. And as time goes on, the Bills just keep getting better and better. And I'll admit, the Steelers looked a little old last night. They really did. Ben Roethlisberger and that offense need to do better if this Pittsburgh Steelers team wants to win football games. They don't have a running game. Their wide receivers and tight ends cannot catch the ball. Their offensive line, let's say it right now, is not very good. In order for this Pittsburgh Steelers team to succeed, the offensive line needs to play better, and they need to establish a running game because even with James Conner back, the Steelers could not do that at all. And look, in terms of Pittsburgh, I think their defense is fine. I think that the Pittsburgh Steelers are still a legitimate threat to the Kansas City Chiefs in the AFC because of their defense. But at the same time, the Steelers end their season the next 3 weeks on the road on Monday Night Football in Cincinnati against the Bengals. They will then head home against the Indianapolis Colts, and then the Pittsburgh Steelers will actually end their season on the road against the Cleveland Browns. And that game could mean a lot, especially after what we watched on Monday Night Football. The Browns, even though they've had a great year, they are no lock for the playoffs right now whatsoever. They need to win at least 1, maybe 2 more football games in order to secure a bid. But yeah, watching the game last night, if I'm a Steeler fan, here's my other major concern. In the first half, I think the Steelers' defense really stepped up. Cam Hayward, TJ Watt, they were getting to the quarterback. And keep in mind, I've been a guy that has been on this Pittsburgh Steelers defense since the beginning of last offseason. I thought that TJ Watt in the preseason was going to win Defensive Player of the Year. Maybe that comes true. I also thought that Minkah Fitzpatrick and Bud Dupree. Obviously, he's banged up, will not be returning this season. Same thing with Devin Bush, even though the backup linebackers have done a pretty good job filling in. But I was really high on this Pittsburgh Steelers defense. And yesterday, in that spot, right, we all saw what Josh Allen was able to do a couple Monday nights ago against the San Francisco 49ers. There was everyone out here saying that that was the closest thing they've ever seen to Patrick Mahomes, and there's no doubt about it. That was a phenomenal performance by Josh Allen last Monday night against the San Francisco 49ers. But at the same time, during the first half of the game, the Steelers had a lot of opportunities, and I think if one or two things go differently, the Steelers could have had a legitimate shot to win this game. I'll start off by saying this. Josh Allen and the Bills' offense was pretty non-existent in the first half, and that credit goes to Cam Hayward and the rest of the Pittsburgh Steelers defense, because Buffalo's offense in the first 2 quarters of the game, Buffalo's offense could not do anything. Josh Allen actually threw a bad pick, and when you consider the circumstances, right, I looked at this matchup and said, okay, even though Josh Allen is much better than I've expected, I'm not 100% sure if I could trust him against an elite defense like Pittsburgh, especially when the Steelers are coming off a loss, and they know that they had to do whatever it took in order to get that number 1 seed, in order to secure that bye week, because when you're a team as banged up as Pittsburgh, I think in order for them to get to the Super Bowl, which is ultimately where they want to go, having that bye week would have been very, very helpful. But at the same time, the game really just changed on that pick six towards the end of the first half. Ben Roethlisberger throws it to Taron Johnson, and really Mike Tomlin said it best. The Bills made more plays. That pick six really changed the momentum of the game, and I'll give the Buffalo Bills a lot of credit. And I'll give Josh Allen a bunch of credit, because after that pick six, to start off the second half, the Bills are starting the half off with the football, and it's one of those things where that drive was so important in this game, because if Buffalo scores, they go up by 9. They were up 9-7 at the half, and they have all the momentum now. The Steelers' offense really wasn't doing anything all night, and even with that being said, they were in a solid spot to go into the locker room with a 7-3 lead at the half, but unfortunately, the pick six really was able to change the sequence of the game for the Pittsburgh Steelers. But it's interesting because I'm going to give credit to Josh Allen for bouncing back. He is a very resilient quarterback. If you guys listen to this show, you guys know that when I'm evaluating quarterbacks, the two most important stats that I look at are completion percentage and yards per attempt. One of the main reasons why going into the season, even though I knew the Buffalo Bills were a very well-coached team and they had plenty of talent around Josh Allen, one of the main reasons why I was a little hesitant on picking the Buffalo Bills to win the AFC East before the season started was because Josh Allen last year ranked 25th in yards per attempt. He ranked behind guys like Kyle Allen, Sam Darnold, Case Keenum, Joe Flacco, Gardner Minshew, Ryan Fitzpatrick, Phillip Rivers, so on and so forth. So he was 25th in the league. That obviously did not impress me. He also, in terms of completion percentage, was, 32nd in the league out of qualified quarterbacks. Last year, Josh Allen only completed 58.8% of his passes, and the argument that I always made was in this era where it's easier than ever to produce at the offensive level, your quarterback of the future that you're building your team around, that you want to pay franchise money to, he should not be completing only 58.8% of his passes. But Brandon Beane, the GM of the Buffalo Bills, said, okay, Josh is struggling a little bit as a passer, even though he's a very good mobile and athletic quarterback. Let's go get this guy some weapons. So what Brandon Beane did was he went out there and traded for Stephon Diggs from the Minnesota Vikings, which turned out to be, I think, the most important move of this offseason so far, because what Stephon Diggs has been able to do to elevate not only his game, but Josh Allen's game, and really just the rest of this Bills offense, is a really interesting and cool sight to see, because it's very often that in terms of these big-time trades when it comes to wide receivers, everyone talks about receivers being, the biggest diva position in the National Football League, and sometimes there could be some controversy with that. Stephon Diggs didn't leave Minnesota on the greatest terms. It just didn't apparently seem that him and Kirk Cousins were on the same page, but he goes to Buffalo. He gets that change of scenery, and all of a sudden, Josh Allen and the Bills looked at their best on Sunday night. Coming out of the first half to start off the third quarter, Josh Allen was just slinging the ball to him, and there was really an obvious difference between the way Josh Allen was throwing the ball and the way Ben Roethlisberger was throwing the ball. Another thing on the Bills I wanted to throw at you. You guys realize that if the Hail Murray doesn't happen, the Buffalo Bills right now are winners of 6 straight games, and they're obviously still playing very impressive football. We'll see what they do to end their season going forward. When you look at Buffalo and their remaining schedule, they will have a game at Denver on Saturday. That will obviously be a lot of fun. They'll then go to New England in a couple Monday nights from now, and then they will end their season at home against the Miami Dolphins. And I do think there is a legitimate argument to be made right now that the Buffalo Bills could be the number one threat to the Kansas City Chiefs in the AFC. And we all know how dynamic the Kansas City Chiefs offense is, and when they met in Orchard Park earlier this season, the Buffalo Bills actually did not end up winning that game. Kansas City really outplayed them throughout the game, but I do think over the last couple weeks, the Buffalo Bills have been playing awesome football, and really since that Kansas City Chief game, if you look at what exactly Buffalo has done, right? They go to the Jets and they barely win. I'll admit, at that point, I was still skeptical on how good exactly the Bills were. They then host New England and win 24-21, but that was another game where Josh Allen didn't play particularly well, and if Cam Newton doesn't fumble the ball in the Bills territory, then there's a good chance that game could have gone to overtime. Then they kill Seattle. We all loved what Josh Allen was able to do against that Seahawks defense. They lose the heartbreaker to Arizona. They beat the Chargers, but then the last 2 weeks have been what really has done it for me for the Buffalo Bills. And I'm not just saying this because both of the games were in prime time, but their quarterback against San Francisco was just really able to step up and make plays. And I was just so impressed how in the first half against the Pittsburgh Steelers, I found myself saying, even though I think the Bills are the more talented team and definitely the better coach team, I do think that there's a chance Josh Allen gets flustered by the Steeler defense. And in the first half, he threw a bad interception, wasn't responsible for the one Bills touchdown. It was a pick six. And then in the third quarter, he just came out slinging like nothing ever bothered him. The Bills offensive coordinator, Brian Dable, is the king of adjustments. He is going to be a head coach next year somewhere, and he really deserves it. And the Buffalo Bills are obviously a team to watch out for. They are playing great football right now, and we'll see what they'll be doing going forward.